Welcome to another episode of How Good Were They, the podcast where we look at some of football's greatest players, managers, and teams to decide once and for all how good were they. And today we are going into women's football for the first time to look at perhaps the most iconic player of all time, Mia Hamm. Thoughts?
Big claim, but possibly spot on there.
Yeah.
One of the first women that I remember hearing about playing football, obviously a US woman. US women's soccer was massive from the 90s on, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's one of the most iconic as it goes.
Yeah, I think growing up, late 90s, early noughties, she was the only player I'd heard about at the time. I remember reading Match magazine, and there would often be a mention of Mia Hamm in there as this amazing female player who was, doing amazing things in America. Highlights of her career, so she's had a fantastic legacy. Starting, I think she made a debut for the US women's national team at the age of 15.
Yeah.
So it was a good start.
Yeah.
In 87, and then goes on to win the 91 World Cup with a fantastic team, the first Women's World Cup, like a third place the next one. Then is part of that Olympic gold winning team in 96, the Atlanta Games, held, of course, in America, which was amazing for women's football at the time, really promoted it to the world, building on the success of the 1994 World Cup, Men's World Cup. Then she goes on to win, famously the 1999 World Cup, which I think is the turning point for women's football in general. USA really gets behind the soccer boom, doesn't it? And I think the final had 90,000 people in the Rose Bowl to watch USA beat China on penalties, and of course the famous Brandy Chastain moment, which takes the top off, and the celebration and the whole sort of liberation behind that as well. Goes on then to play until 2004, I think, wins the Olympic Games again in 2004. Fantastic trophy-laden career. Do you want to hear her stats?
Go on.
Okay, so interesting career-wise, because in the US at the time, soccer in the women's game was played at a college level. Yeah. She played for the North Carolina Tar Heels at the University of North Carolina. Scored 103 goals in 95 games, so ridiculous stats straight away. Yeah. More goals in games. Then, when she leaves college, there's no American league for women's football, so she doesn't play for a club. She just plays for the US national team. But they play so regularly, it's almost like a club. Yeah. So 276 games for US women's national team, just mad. 158 goals. So again, mad stats. At the time, it was the most goals ever scored by both a men's or a women's footballer at international level. She still only got, Abby Wambach and Christine Sinclair for Canada are ahead of her now. She's ahead of any men's player. She's 20 goals ahead still of Cristiano Ronaldo. So, shows her level. But even more impressive is alongside her 158 goals is 144 assists.
That's mad, isn't it?
So I think it's over 300 goals and assists in 276 games, which shows her level. Now, in this podcast, I like to throw some curveballs at Gav, where we reassess the narratives of these players sometimes, or we defend their legacies. What is the current narrative on Mia Hamm?
I think probably the big thing when you look at that career, when we talk about great players, and you compare them perhaps to some of those women who are playing football today, obviously she didn't have a club career, and that, how can you fairly say that she is one of the best of all time? She didn't do it at club level, and she's got no sort of history to talk about, no appearances in the Women's Champions League or the North American Champions League or anything like that now exists.
Yeah.
I think that would be one thing that sort of people would say is, the game was very different then, and therefore she was the best at a time when soccer was not what it is today. Football.
Yeah, fair enough. Right. Before we go on to the curveballs, so look at her style of play. So from the clips we've seen, because of course there's clips for us, because you probably just a bit before our time, and also growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was no women's football on British TV, was there? You didn't exist.
Oh yeah.
What we've seen on YouTube, we can see she is technically outstanding.
Yeah. Got an absolute rocket of a right foot.
Incredible, yeah. The left foot as well.
Yeah. So, I had to Google which footed she was because she was so confident on both feet. And watching some of her best goals and compilations of her best goals, she's finishing equally with left and right foot.
Often just blasting them in at that, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, really, and a whole variety of goals as well. So outside the box, chips, firing it, particularly when she gets in behind. She's going to finish. She's
Quick.
Box it in. Yeah.
Quick, yeah. So, versatile player. She plays striker, sometimes a bit further back. Even in the '91 World Cup, she played in defence. She played as a right centre back in that team because the forward line there, they had Michelle Akers, they had Karen Jennings, and they had Heinrichs as well. So they had I think it was called the triple edged sword. It's fantastic front three, which she wasn't able to get into that front three at the time, so she's playing defence. They had to get her in the team. I'm pretty sure she was number 9 still.
Wow.
Wins the World Cup. I think she's only aged 19. She's really young at the time. And then when I think Heinrichs retires straight after, she comes in and takes over her place in the triple-edged sword. She had blistering pace, intelligent movement. She was lethal in front of goal, as you already alluded to. And she was a real leader on and off the pitch because she wasn't just that player who would win you a game. She was the face of women's football. Before the '99 World Cup, Mia Hamm was everywhere. When America were doing well, in the US after the '96 Olympics, she was the face that was, getting people to come and watch the game. We see that then later on because when the Women's League does form in 2000, 2001, the icon of the silhouette on the icon of the actual league is hers.
Yeah.
She is there to promote it. You see things like there's a famous Gatorade commercial with Michael Jordan where they're both playing sports together. Anything you can do, I can do better. And they're like doing fencing and judo. So she was massive. She was as big as, Michael Jordan.
And she really was. I think that was massive. And this is why I think she fits this podcast really well of how good was she? Because she's hyped up as an incredible, one of the best of all time. And it's good for us to look at that and decide, was she, and have a think about that. But in terms of that celebrity status, it is crazy, really, isn't it, to be pitched alongside Michael Jordan. You think of Jordan is the silhouette of Air Jordan and all that. She was the silhouette of women's football, and that is something. It's that debate of what would you rather be, a statue or a silhouette. It's pretty iconic being a silhouette that's going to appear on badges and trophies and whatever it may be. But this is why I think she really fits this podcast, because we can explore a little bit. Was she as good as we said she was, as people say she was?
Yeah.
Was it a little bit of overhyped? But either way, she was just so iconic and such a game changer for women's soccer, women's football in the US and across the world.
Definitely would have inspired people in this country as well, wouldn't she? Okay, let's go on to the curveballs then. So, curveball number 1. So, era of dominance. Did playing in the US women's national team's golden era make her look even better?
Okay. I think that's fair. It's something we talked about a little bit of if there's less competition about, which there undoubtedly was, does it make her look better? Well, it's really hard to say. I think we've looked at people like Frank Puskás, who was clearly one of the best in the world at a time when the overall quality level is not what you'd say it is today. And you'd say the same with women's football, women's soccer. It is across the world now, a higher standard probably. They're full-time, they're professional, they're training more. And the US team were clearly the most dominant. You've reeled off their successes and how much they lift. But it doesn't take away from the fact that she was the best player, probably. Michelle Akers too, but her was the best. She dominated at a time when the US were the best team. To be the best player on the best team is a pretty impressive thing to be. To reel off her record and the number of goals she scored, you can't sort of take that away from her. She may well have dominated with the number of times she scored, and may well have dominated with the number of trophies she won. But she still did it. She was the one. She was the model. She was the trailblazer for everyone else to look up to and to want to be and to follow. Not just young girls, but also young boys too, for sure.
Yeah, I think in defence of that curveball, you'd say, although she won a lot with the US women's national team, she didn't win everything. She didn't win the '95 World Cup.
Yeah.
She didn't win the 2000 Olympics, the 2003 World Cup. So there's things she didn't obviously win. And that maybe that curveball isn't fair on teams like Norway, for example, who were massive in the women's game, winning the '95 World Cup. I think Hege Riise wasn't she playing? They beat them again in the gold medal match in Sydney 2000. China were outstanding as well.
Yeah.
Sun Wen, arguably also one of the greatest women's footballers of all time.
Who's definitely less well known, isn't she? I think. Yeah.
She is, but I'm pretty sure she was voted above Mia Hamm in the FIFA Women's Player of the Century in 2000. I think Michelle Akers and Sun Wen were the first two. Mia Hamm was third.
Right.
So there is some other countries who were still pushing those levels.
Yeah,
2003, Germany win the World Cup with the famous golden goal.
Yeah.
So there's definitely competition. USA was still at level. Maybe help from the home Olympics in '96, the home World Cup in '99 would have obviously helped. Those massive crowds are obviously going to be a big support. Good point. Okay, let's go on to curveball number 2. Global exposure gap. Would she have been even more famous if women's football had the same media presence then as now? So,
that's good.
Yeah, would she? We were saying before the podcast, if she was playing now, would she be as big because of the standard of women's football, the level, the more competition, the much more countries, and the level is so much higher? Or would she be even bigger again because she was so good? So if she was playing now, would she be ranked alongside Aitana Bonmati or Alessia Russo?
She'd be on TV more, certainly. You'd think so. Although she was, as we've said, she was incredibly media friendly and savvy and marketable.
But not here.
Not here, yeah. And you would have definitely heard of her. She probably would have come across and played in the WSL, possibly.
Yeah, you hear players from the US when in the 2010s, Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, big names as well. If Mia Hamm was in there, Kylie Lloyd, she would have surely been as high up, wouldn't she?
And it's tricky to know, isn't it? You say we've said it before. You only can play against your era, and so it's hard to say. Would she have been as dominant alongside an Alex Morgan or Rapinoe? But let's carry her talent and career over. You would certainly say she'd be an icon of the women's game nowadays, wouldn't she? And again, incredibly popular across the board.
Yeah, I think if she was playing now, I don't know if she would be as big.
Standalone.
Because I do think the standard is so much more widespread now. I mean, look how good England are now. England went in 2 Euros back to back.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at some of Mia Hamm's stats, she scored against England in 2003 in a 6-0 win for the US. That would never happen now.
No,
England, you would fancy them against the US now. They would give it as good as they could get.
It would certainly diluted it, wouldn't it? Because there would be other people you can get behind a cheer. In that way.
Yeah, and would she have scored? Would Mia Hamm score 158 goals now against the level of opposition that we have now? It would probably be less, wouldn't it? You would imagine. Okay, right. Club versus country. So I think this is the biggest curveball for me. Other than a college career and a later career for Washington Freedom, where she did amazing for a couple of seasons there. She didn't play for a club from '93, the end of her college career, until 2001. There's an 8-year gap there. Now, does a lack of a club career tarnish the legacy, or is her international exploits and level good enough to oversee all that?
Yeah, which is what we were saying earlier. Of course, it's going to have an impact on how you're considered as one of the best of all time if you only did it on the international stage. Now, that's not her fault because there wasn't an option for her to play anywhere in the US at that time. There's not a lot she could do. And it is crazy, really, that she left college and then waits until, her late 20s, really, before playing soccer again at a club level.
Yeah.
And the collegiate system was a good system and competitive, but there was no other option for her. And so, she's only playing for the US. Of course, it's going to have an impact because when we consider now some of the greatest women players of all time, you will be looking at their club career. Even people like, Lucy Bronze or, our shows like Kelly Smith.
They're on as a list.
Exactly.
They're trophy cabinets.
And the Champions League they won or whatever it may be, that's going to have an impact. It is weird to look at someone's stats and just see such a gap in there. And I genuinely, just wonder, like, what did she do outside of that? Was she just training? Yeah, obviously the US played a fair amount, but they weren't playing every single week in, week out. So, her standard is probably going to be slightly lower if you're not playing club football all the time. you're not going to be improving and getting better because you're not playing so regularly and training full time. I don't know what her sort of how full time her training schedule was and things like that. Again, you've got to take it into context. She was the best at a time when that was the state of play, but it's definitely going to impact how she's remembered, possibly by some who would argue now more modern players have surpassed her, possibly.
I think financially her career would have been okay, because I think after her success in, I think, the late 90s, she had all the endorsement deals was through Mia Hamm. I think Nike, she was big for them as well. So there was a company that needed a sort of a footballer or soccer player to be their, star person. It wasn't one of the male players. It was Mia Hamm, and I think that's a big thing, because I probably heard of Mia Hamm before I'd heard of many US men's players. I think growing up, I would have heard of Brad Friedel because he played in the Premier League. I would have heard of Brian McBride at Fulham.
Eventually, Landon Donovan.
Donovan at the 2002 World Cup, where he made his name, and quite a few of the players made their name in that World Cup. But I wouldn't have heard anyone else. And I heard of Mia Hamm. I knew her probably when I was about 6 or 7 from the magazines and for the 99 World Cup. So that says a lot.
Yeah, and there's an element of as I said before, I'm a big fan of US sports. It was that soccer was seen as the sport that women could play. Safer, more polite, as it were, than the hit 'em hard American football or even the
hockey,
basketball can be, in ice hockey. So it was seen as that. And Diana Rossini, one of the good American journalists of the NFL, was a soccer player and talks about soccer as that. And lots of, you'll see it even in kids' TV programs from our childhood. The girls play soccer.
She's the man.
Yeah. And that is what girls do. And so there's an element of that was the where they were funneled down. And that's for perhaps, if you're a talented boy in America, you try and make it at one of the other sports, possibly, probably.
Yeah.
Or equally, you'd come across and play in Europe, and try and get a gig in Europe in somewhere. So they weren't as marketable as Mia Hamm, but that is remarkable, really, that she was amongst so much competition, amongst a country that loves sports so much. She could still stand up and be in those commercials, could be in British magazines about football for boys. She was still represented, and it shows how much of a trailblazer she was in that way.
Yeah, fantastic. So we've kind of already got on to this. But usually this part we look at the legacy and influence. We've kind of already touched on that now. So I think there's no doubt that she was the main pioneer for women's football in the US and around the world. I imagine most footballers who made their debuts maybe around 2000 would probably said, "Oh, my inspiration is Mia Hamm or Michelle Akers, maybe." A role model for female athletes across sports. She actually helped in the creation of the Women's League. She was a founding member of it with the rest of the US team, built on the 99 World Cup success. And she's still held in, like we do now, the discussions of the GOATs.
Yeah.
So a bit like, Pele in the men's game, someone from the earlier game.
Yes.
But we still talk about him as one of the best of all time. Footballers moved on. Women's football has moved on a lot since 99. It is, from when we first started watching women's football, probably around 2005, the Euros, I think, were held in the UK. The difference is enormous now. The game is so much faster, it's quicker, it's played on much better pitches, they train, they're full time. It is amazing. And I think the fact that she's still held in those discussions is the best player.
And I love that she's still involved in the game. So she's a part owner of the LA franchise.
Angel Seat as well.
And she's also on the board of AS Roma. She's a board owner of the men's team. The Free King Group own Roma, and she's been put on there not just again as a diversity inclusion, but as someone who is trusted in football to play a part in that, and still appears on TV and things like so. So she is a trusted voice in the women's game, but also it has crossed over into the men's game, which is really difficult to do.
Fair play. And it shows a foundation as well. I think charity foundation too. Okay, should we hear what former players have said about Mia Hamm? Right, should we start with our favourite, Pele?
Of course.
So Pele included Mia Hamm in the FIFA 100, so the list of Pele's 125 greatest living footballers. Mia Hamm and Michelle Akers, the only two female players in it, but she was in it, which rightly so. Okay, so he said, Mia Hamm is one of the greatest players in the history of the sport. He doesn't say in the history of women's sport. He says in history, basically in history of football, she is one of the greatest players. And I would agree. Absolutely. Abby Wambach, famous striker as well for the US team. I think there's a crossover point from when Mia Hamm retired and she kind of takes over then as the main focal point. She made all of us believe we could dream bigger.
Nice.
Leadership skills again. Lovely. And Julie Fowdy says she was the face of women's soccer before the world knew what it could be. Oh, that's nice. We've also though got some even more quotes because we've had some on our Twitter as well. So we're going to hear what you guys think about Mia Hamm, but also some ex-players that we managed to get hold of.
Our famous followers.
Some of our famous followers. So should we hear about those now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's hear what you guys have to say about Mia Hamm. How good was she? Starts off.
Well, Jill Coulthard, who played against her, I believe.
MBE. I think she was England captain.
First appearance of an MBE on this?
I think so. Yeah, not bad.
England captain Jill Coulthard, former England captain, calls her the GOAT. A GOAT. One of the GOATs.
Yeah, she's. We replied asking if she ever played against her. And she said she did, which is that's amazing. Yeah. She was an exceptional player.
Yeah.
Kia's Tavam, who is a journalist in the women's game, he says she's the best forward of her generation, had to shoulder a lot of the attention of the women's national team because of the impact she had on it, and that team was full of talent and personality. A game changer on and off the field, one of the first real icons of the women's game. Perfect, isn't it?
I think that's important. It's a massive point that we're not just considering pure the talent and everything else like that. We're, the impact that person has. Mia Hamm is one who you could argue had a humongous impact for sure. I can't see that.
Okay, Lucy Ward, you would have listened to her on the on TV, often with the commentary, fantastic.
Weekday and things like that.
Yeah, really good commentator. She says that she actually met Mia when she was guested at a Nike sports camp in England in 2007 that she was coaching at. Nobody really knew her, but I was telling everyone she is the best footballer you'll ever meet, which caused the kids to get so excited. I mean, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah. Imagine, we obviously we teach, so imagine the children that we taught seeing Mia Hamm would be unreal. She said she showed me a trick that I spent months perfecting afterwards in the garden. What a player. So even to fellow professionals, teaching them a new trick, which is pretty cool.
Hugh Richards said, literally iconic. If you regard the league badge using her image as an icon, I mean...
yeah, that's literally iconic, yeah.
Would you rather be an icon or a silhouette? A statue or a silhouette? I think I'd rather be a silhouette.
Would you?
Yeah.
No.
If...
She might have a statue as well.
I'm sure she does, but if I'm to pop it, you can stick me on the TFHB icon maybe in the future.
Doing what?
With the podcast mic in front of me.
Oh, there you go, nice. Okay, and Adam Bateman says she was the first true iconic women's player to break through into the mainstream world media. Yeah, agreed. To have her own merchandise and dolls and other items, that says it all, really. She came of age as a player at just the right time, and the 99 World Cup win really cemented her name. Absolutely spot on.
She timed it right. You're absolutely right with that. She timed it right. You're absolutely right with that. In terms of the growth she hit at the right time as sort of sport exploded in the 90s.
Yeah.
More marketability. I think that they modelled the soccer player Barbie on her and things like that as well. So she's endorsed it and was in the adverts for that as well. So yeah, she nailed it. And iconic has been something that's come up throughout everyone.
That's the word, isn't it? Okay, right. The end of the podcast now, where we rank the player. We say where we think they deserve to be regarded amongst the greats. So I usually give you a few things to rate them between. So let's go, first of all, rate her in terms of US women's national team players. Where would you put her?
I think... that's tricky, isn't it? Because the US have had some quality.
Yeah, they've had some pretty good players.
Wambach, Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Carly Lloyd. You can keep going. But I think because of the iconic nature of it, how she sets it, I think you can put her in top 3. I think she's top 3 for me.
With who?
Akers.
Yeah. Akers is another trailblazer, isn't she?
Yeah. I think the trailblazers. Yeah. I think they are important. They are.
What makes you the greatest? Do you have to just be the best player on the pitch, or is your legacy part of all that greatness, isn't it?
Because it built it for both, Maradona and Pele. They were quality. but they were also iconic in other ways, weren't they? Particularly like a Maradona and the role he plays in sport in that way, or a Cruyff. So I think I put her there. It's tricky, isn't it? Then there's so many you could argue would be there with her, whether that's Rapinoe.
I don't think I have Rapinoe in the top three, but I think I'd maybe Wan-Back. Wan-Back. Kylie Lloyd hat-trick in the World Cup final, pretty good, isn't it?
Hope Solo is obviously
Solo goals, yeah.
She beat you. Well,
good player,
it's tricky to say, but you put her in. Maybe you'd stick her at right centre back like she played in 1991 in your all-time 11. I think she's making that cut, isn't she?
I think I'd have her. I think I'd have the top. Yeah, number one. Yeah. Right. All-time players then. Where does she go? All-time women's footballers. Where does she rank?
Again, she's up there again. Of course she is. She's got to be up there.
You got players like obviously Marta.
Yeah.
I think it's
going.
Probably the GOAT of women's football.
Yeah. Still incredibly still going. You know, she feels like she's like 50 now. I don't think she's quite that old, but she's still going at 40. I think she has been there for years and years and years.
And she's won World Player of the Year. You know, however many times.
And then we're coming on to the point of some of the most recent players are clearly
Bon Mati
more skilled.
Yeah,
I would argue probably because they fact that they play more.
Bon Mati's the best player I've ever seen play
incredible.
On the unbelievable,
absolutely incredible.
Like dictating the game, but also the scale, getting forward, scoring goals, ridiculous. I think from my own personal experience watching women's football, I'd have the best player I've actually seen play is Bon Mati, but maybe she's benefited again from the more recent, extra training, the level, and the fans, and the money, blah blah blah. But I think, Marta, I think has to be number one. In terms of all time, I think you'd have. It's so hard, isn't it? Jess Fishlock, for the Welsh. I think Hamm's she's top three, isn't she?
Yeah,
of all time.
Certainly in this country, there'd be people shouting for some of the English girls to be up there.
Yeah, Kira Walsh, Alessia Russo, Jill Scott from before.
Who had such an impact, Kelly Smith. And then there'd be, you can argue there's a load of players in Germany who you certainly put in there.
Yeah, Birgit Prince,
Norway, Sun Wen, as you said. So it is really hard to put it there. But I think
French
put it
Lyon players as well.
Yeah. Out of Hedderberg, and then it was, quality in terms of that.
Renard, I think she goes top three. I think the whole
the iconic nature of it.
Yeah, she has to be, doesn't she?
Yeah. The fact that she had such an impact on probably all of those women playing who still, I'm sure, it would be like meeting Pele or whoever it may be for them, coming across Mia Hamm, and she's such an iconic name in women's sport, and not just soccer, for sure. It's, across sport in America, but across sport, women's sport in the world. She sort of showed the way that whatever sport you play, you can make a name for yourself professionally doing that at a high level, and I think probably women's sport owe a lot to her in that way.
Okay, my last question for you is, if there was a women's football Mount Rushmore, who would be on it? You've got 4 players to pick. Go. Don't think about it. Just say it.
Go straight off.
And then I'll say him. Because I get to just use yours and change them.
Okay, so Marta.
Yeah.
I think I'd put it there for the iconic nature of it. So if we've done a video on this, check out our YouTube if you've not. We've done a football Mount Rushmore for the men, and we had varying categories there. So I'm not just talking
the Cardiff City Mount Rushmore.
So I'm going to put Marta on there for longevity, impact, goals, quality. Brazilian, you've got to have Brazilian on there. And then I go Mia Hamm, iconicness, nature of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go someone European to signify the growth of the European game. I think Bon Mati, because she's still playing, she's not there yet.
Okay.
She's carving her
Prince
later.
Birgit Prince?
Probably Birgit Prince, yeah. Prince. And then...
I think Christine Sinclair, all-time top scorer.
Just whether you put someone on there, because the impact that, Asian sport grew through her. And Asian soccer is big. Chinese men's football is nothing, really, is it? But Chinese women's football has always competed and possibly...
Japanese, Amari Sawa for Japan as well.
Yeah. There are iconic names there. But Wan-Back is someone that I really remember.
Wan-Back then?
Yeah, I'm going to put Wan-Back on there as well.
Or Rapinoe doing the celebration.
That's true, that'd look quite good on the Mount Rushmore.
We'd be pretty cool, yeah.
Or just a cup of tea for...
That'd be a good silhouette.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That was iconic. What a moment that was. Okay, right. You can actually vote for your favourite women's footballers of all time, who you think the best players are by going to our website, tfhbs.com, and clicking where it says TFHB 100 Women. Go on there. There is about 150 women's players to choose from. You can vote for your top 5 who you think deserves to be on it. We've had quite a lot of votes already. I think Marta's leading the way, but you can change. You have the power to change, so get on there and vote. Carry on the discussion. You can comment on this video. You can comment on the podcast on Spotify, on Apple as well. You can watch it on YouTube. So subscribe to us there at tfhbs.com. We do little clips as well on our TikTok at the Football History Boys, Instagram as well at the Football History Boys. There's loads of places to get hold of us, so get hold of us.
Yeah, do check us out. Join the conversation and check out some of the past videos in this podcast series. It's been a great series thinking about some of these players and how important.
10 episodes in now.
Yeah,
join it.
And tell us who else you want us to look at, men or women. We are keen to keep going with this because I think it's been some great conversations. We're not just thinking about the best of all time. We've said that we're ignoring Messi, Ronaldo here. We're ignoring Pele, Maradona. We want to look at some of these players and the impact they had on the history of the beautiful game, the game we all love.
Brilliant. Right, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see you again for another one very soon.